respective schools and are especially happy to be in collaboration together in this space. So as I mentioned, you'll be hearing tonight an array of different experiences from our 7 panelists, including current students at HBCUs, alums, and working professionals, highlighting the importance of higher education at an HBCU. And I'll speak personally, having a lot of my family members attending HBCUs, growing up around that, I know how important it is. As you're joining this space, please make sure to mute yourself just to make sure that we can all hear the panelists. So our goal today is wherever you and your family are in preparing for the college search process, that you will come away with a newfound strength and understanding of what it means to attend a historically Black college or university, whether it's learning about a new institution, the academic and social opportunities available to students, or the rich cultural history that permeates these institutions. We hope that this is an intimate conversation that provides you with valuable insight. So here's the agenda for tonight to give you an idea of what to expect. We'll take a few moments for each of our panelists to introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about where they attended or are currently attending college, what their major was or their profession is, and a little bit about their experience so far. Then I'm going to kick off the conversation by asking a couple of questions that highlight the HBCU experience. And finally, we will open the virtual floor to give the audience an opportunity to ask any questions. And I ask that you please be mindful again and mute your microphones unless you are a panelist answering a question. And for panelists, if you want to use that raise hand function, so that way we don't all speak on top of each other when we get to the questions. Everything sound good so far? All right, so let's get started with panel introductions. And in no particular order, Tamia, I'm looking right at you right now, so you're gonna go ahead and get us started.
Great, no problem. Hi, everybody. My name is Tamia Fowler. I am a senior, which is crazy to say, management major with a concentration in entrepreneurship. And I would normally say I'm from Brooklyn, New York, but we already know that. I currently go to Howard University. And yeah, right now I just finished being a part of Howard Entertainment with Amazon Studios and the American Black Film Festival. And I just got inducted into being a part of the National Council of Negro Women. Outside of this, I do School of Ethics and Global Leadership. I'm a resident advisor, which I also got into from Berkeley, Carroll. And I am the CEO of Mia's Good Smells, my perfume business.
Ooh. We might have to talk about that a little later.
And my pronouns are she, they.
Thank you, Tamia. Cecilia.
Good evening. My name is Cecilia Williams, and my pronouns are she, her. I am the Director of Interagency and External Affairs for the Family Court Division of the New York City Law Department. I am a proud graduate of the Florida A&M University. I graduated in 2001. I'm so excited to be here to talk about my experience at the university. I was an English major, and if you didn't tell from my title, I am a practicing attorney here in New York City, practicing since 2005. So I'm going to turn it over to our next panelists for their intro.
Thank you, Cecilia. Nicole, please go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Thank you again for inviting us to participate. This is great. My name is Nicole Barnwell. I am the president and founder of the HBCU Hub, which is an organization right here in New York City that's working to support students in their transition and their desire to attend an HBCU. I graduated, proud graduate of Hampton University, where I graduated in 2008. My major was accounting, and I later worked in financial investigations and investigative accounting before transitioning to beginning my journey in nonprofit founder and nonprofit. So my pronouns are she and her. And so I will hand it off to the next panelist.
Thank you, Nicole. I was wondering if someone was going to say the real HU, but we're keeping love here, so we will keep going. Peter, if you want to go ahead.
Hello, everyone. My name is Peter Young. My pronouns are he, him. I'm a senior business marketing major sales minor from Jersey City, New Jersey. I attended Packard Collegiate Institute, and some of the clubs I'm in on campus are Lighthouse, which is a community service organization. I'm part of the chess club, and I'm also on the lacrosse team.
Thank you, Peter. Ed.
Thank you, Joel. Peter, I don't know if I heard you say what school you go to, by the way.
Oh, Morehouse College. I apologize.
Yeah, I thought so because I'm a Morehouse grad too. I want to make sure we get our shout out here. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ed Oliver. I'm a 1989 graduate of Morehouse College. I'm a parent actually at BFS and also on the board at BFS. So that's my connection to the Brooklyn schools. I attended the Hackley School in Tarrytown, New York for 12 years of my life and really had a great experience going on to an HBCU after attending a prep school in Westchester County for so many years. I currently work in business. I was a business major when I was at Morehouse. I went on to get my MBA as well, and I've worked in a variety of different business roles. And I currently work for I won't call it a startup technology company more, but a growth technology company in the real-time information space. And it's really great to be here. Good to see so many people.
Thank you, Ed, and for making sure that we have that Morehouse representative across two folks here today. Hanli, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Handley. I am a Berkeley Carroll alumna and a recent graduate of the Real HU. My pronouns are she, her, hers. My major was criminology and I minored in political science. I'm also a member of Phi Alpha Delta Law Fraternity International, and I'm currently a paralegal.
Thank you. And Keldrick, I'm glad that internet finally came in. Welcome. Go ahead.
Can you hear me okay? Sorry to ask that.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank goodness for Google to help me figure things out. But hey, everybody, my name is Keldrick. I also go by Kel for short. My pronouns are he, him. I attended the illustrious Tuskegee University, proud graduate of 2014, majored in political science, and I currently work at Deloitte, which is a consulting firm, and I work within talent acquisition. So it's short and sweet, focus on talent, finding dope talent like you all and bringing you into the organization and helping you have a successful career long-term. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here, Kel, and thank you all for sharing a little bit about your story, your experiences, and your experiences after that HBCU life. But we want to take it back to start a little bit and go back to high school. So could you all briefly describe, and Ed, you did a great job of talking about it a little bit, of like that experience that you had in high school, the kind of high school you attended, so that we could get a sense of your decision-making process to decide to attend an HBCU. So I'll take a second, think through it. I know it might be some time. It's some time for me to go all the way back to high school. But when you're ready, if you want to use that hand raise function to share a little bit. Ed, you could go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just build on what I had started with. I mean, I think for me, it was interesting because, you know, at Hackley and at that time, you know, the many years that I was a high schooler, I don't know that HBCUs are really on the radar for a lot of students at predominantly white institutions. And my parents both went to HBCUs. My mother was a Morgan State grad. My father went to FAMU and the HU, Howard University, apparently. So, you know, it was very much a part of growing up for my sister and I. And frankly, my parents insisted on us attending HBCU. They didn't care which one, but they thought it was really important for us, after having so much time in that one environment, to move into an environment that would be much more connected to who we are, you know, and give us a sense of self and confidence in the world. So for me, it was a really important shift and decision to make that, you know, maybe it wasn't fully made on my own, but I think it was important that it was made. And, you know, Peter, you mentioned playing lacrosse. You know, I played lacrosse in high school as well, and I really wanted to do that in college. And that wasn't an opportunity at Morehouse at the time, but in the end, that small sacrifice was really worth the, you know, the time that I spent in Atlanta and at Morehouse and the AUC broadly, and you know, just all the things that I took away from that. So it was by far one of the best experiences I ever had.
Thank you. Kel, I saw your hand go up next.
Yeah, so my experience, thank you for that question. I actually go back and think through like what time was like back then. So my experience was more like emotional and spiritual because for context, I was first generation and I went to a predominantly white high school. And so my parents during the time, they were like, hey, we know we want you to go to college, so kind of figure out what you want to do and let's go there. And so we went to Tuskegee for an open house event, no set list about what we were expecting. And I kid you not, my mom made her decision for me because the choir, they got up to sing this song, this spiritual, and she was like, yo, I don't care where you're going, but one, this is an hour in our backyard, so we can definitely get here if something happens, but also the choir is amazing. So no need to set up what you're gonna do. I'm like, okay, cool. This is where I'll be. But even the academic portion too, again, just seeing professors who could talk about different policies and academic material and connected to me during the open house segment, I was ultimately sold to kind of choosing Tuskegee. But that was my high school context a little bit.
Absolutely. Peter, I think I saw your hand after.
Yes. Can you hear me okay? I'm sorry.
I can, yes.
Yes. So as I said before, I went to Packard Collegiate, and before that I went to Stevens Cooperative School from pre-KK all the way up to middle school. And so those were both like predominantly white schools. And so for me, I always wanted to go to an HBCU, specifically wanting to be around people or like-minded people like me, and seeing my teachers and my classmates or people who look like me. And that was something that I truly valued. And then coming to Morehouse, just being a part of a brotherhood and people who want to see you succeed was something that I really enjoyed. And not only that, but specifically at Morehouse, it being an all male Black school, seeing the intersectionality of the Black man is something that I truly appreciate and value. So yes.
Absolutely. Hanley, I think you could go next.
Yes, so Berkeley Carroll was a very supportive community. Miss Middleton was my advisor, and I was also a part of the TEAC Fellowship, which is a similar program to Prep for Prep. So I had like amazing supportive advisors. I was thinking about how Howard came on the list, and then I remembered about Chelsea. She was a 2017 Berkeley Carroll graduate, and she went to Howard as well. And I don't know, she had a great experience, and I had visited the school, and I was like, yeah, this is it. And I love the student ambassadors, and I actually became one myself once I joined the Howard community. And I was also part of Key Society at Berkeley Carroll, which is just a group of people who give tours. So it's something that I enjoyed. I found my people, but I think that the support system was very much so there in all of my communities. When my mom visited too, she was like, yeah, you're going as well. So kind of like Keldrick, she made the decision for me, and I don't regret it at all.
Trying to get a kind of reoccurring theme of like family, community really playing a role in a lot of this as well. Nicole.
My high school experience was actually pretty similar to some were mentioned. I went to a predominantly white Catholic school, so I went to St. Edmund Preparatory here in Brooklyn. And I really honestly didn't have much support at all around college. A lot of the options that were presented were all around state schools, state and city schools. And it was really my church family that took us, decided they were going to do an HBCU tour my sophomore year and exposed us to Hampton and Howard and Morehouse and, just so many great schools that, we were able to get to over a weekend. And that really is what helped me to get to Hampton. I decided I didn't want to go farther than Virginia. I wanted to stay, relatively close to New York. And that really was, I think also what helped make the decision for me was the fact that Hampton, the alumni kept in touch. So they sent a postcard stating that they were having a on-site admissions program. And so I was able to, in the winter before pretty much anybody else had their decisions, I was able to get accepted to Hampton, have already that solid prior to many of my peers. And so that really was a big part of it too, the fact that I was able to actually go physically and get an on-site admissions decision. And that really, just similar to what everyone mentioned, I wouldn't trade it for the world. So I'm super grateful that, I had the people around me that I did that, were able to help me get to Hampton. Otherwise, it wouldn't have happened. If I was solely relying on my school, counselors, that it probably wouldn't have happened. So yeah, that's a little bit of my high school experience.
Cecilia.
So I have a slightly different background from my other panelists. I'm not a native New Yorker. I've been here 17 years, so I feel like one sometimes. But I'm actually from the South, and I was from a very small town in Mississippi, a public school attendee the entirety of my childhood. But even though I was a public school student, I often found myself in spaces where I was more often than not the only Black student, or possibly one of few. I was in the gifted and talented program, and also taking honors and AP courses, which I'm sure many of you are taking. And often I would look around the classroom and there would not be someone else who looked like me. And what that tends to do over time, over the years, is it creates this subconscious impression that to be academically talented is something that is not inherent to Blackness. And so going to an HBCU, surprisingly, was something that was encouraged by one of my white classmates. I graduated high school in 1998, proudly 42 years old. And one of my classmates came up to me because I had gotten a scholarship, and he was bringing me this magazine and was saying, "You got a scholarship to FAMU?" And I was like, "Yeah," but I didn't really know a whole lot about it. I had some family members attend, but I didn't really know a whole lot about FAMU and the HBCU tradition. And he said, "The school just got an award for being the US World News Report's College of the Year." And I was like, "Really?" So I had to learn quickly, more about HBCUs, and understanding that they really do try to attract talented students from all over the country. And that's something that I think continues to this day. And you will find that when you attend, and I'm saying when, not if, that you will be there and you will see so many students who look like you, similar backgrounds, who may look like you and not have similar backgrounds, that may be from all parts of the world, all parts of the country. And for me, that was really transformative. When you're one of, it can be isolating, it can be lonely. So I was able to find my tribe. I found other quiet, nerdy bookworms who also were very interested in the arts and dance, and realized that I was not by myself. And it allowed me to flourish and grow and stretch. So I'll end there and say that even though I did not come from New York and I did not come from the prep and private school system, I think for academically talented students, it often can feel very similar in that isolation. So that's what I'll share about my transition from high school into an HBCU.
No, thank you so much for sharing. And Tamia, I started with you, so I'm going to end this section with you. Go for it.
Okay. Also, just so everybody knows, if y'all hear a lot of noise in the background, I live with 24 kids. So I'm a residential advisor, so they're setting up for dinner. So if y'all hear them, I'm so sorry. But so kind of like Hanley, I also leaned on my upperclassmen friends to like get me interested in HBCUs. At first, I knew I wanted to be in DC already because of the School of Ethics and Global Leadership, which I'm a part of now. When I was in DC, I fell in love with the city, so I kind of just knew that I wanted to do that. And I applied to the PWIs out here, but I also was heavily leaning on being at Howard. So they are very heavily like what influenced me to come here. Also, just with the fact that like I love Blackness. Every time I started the Black Human Girl affinity group when I was at Berkeley Carroll, and just in general, I'm a Black woman, and I say I love Black women, and everything I do is to to make safe spaces for Black women. So Howard seemed as a safe space for me. And when I went there, I also fell in love with the space. The tour guide had just made me feel really involved and included already, from just like how we interacted, and in general, kind of like Cecilia, like having people that look like you and have completely different experiences from you. So it's something that really made me feel, one, like I'm not just a duplicate of just like one thing, one stereotype, but also just like there are people who are similar to you, and that's okay. So it was a mixture of all those things. I'm also a part of Breakthrough New York. So that was, they were really supportive in helping me figure out financial aid and things like that. So it also came down to money. situation. So I also applied to Spelman and I got accepted to Spelman, but the money wasn't there. The money was at Howard. So it could have been either or, but Howard really has my heart being a senior today.
Well, thank you for sharing while you're also supervising young people cooking. We're gonna keep our fingers crossed that we don't see no smoke in the background. Before we get to the next question, I also wanna just shout out the fact that we have over 30 attendees here, which is incredible. So for all of the attendees, if you could put in the chat what school you attend, or if it's a family member, what school your student attends, just so that we could get a sense of who's attending and who is able to make it to this session. So if you could go in the chat before we hear from our panelists for the next questions, that would be incredibly helpful. So for my panelists, you've talked about kind of what motivated you to apply, what that experience was like in that high school. Could you talk to us about maybe what surprised you most about your HBCU experience? Take that time, take a second. Ed, as always, ready to go.
Well, actually, Cecilia said something and Handley echoed in. I think for me, the thing that was most surprising, again, I went to Hackley from first grade until I graduated. So that's all I knew. And attending Morehouse, being involved in the AUC community, seeing Spelman and all these amazing, beautiful Black women, all these incredible Black men. It was the first time that I could see all the ranges and all the possibilities of what it was like to be Black. And so it was all my friends from the South that I had no experience about what their experience, understand their experience. The Detroit kids, the LA kids, the fact that the California kids aren't all the same. The San Fran and the LA kids are different. So for me, it was that experience of seeing all the ways and all the ranges and the possibilities of what it was like to be Black in America at that time, and that it wasn't one thing. And as a New Yorker, and so when I grew up in New York, there was not quite a single point of view, but there were a couple of points of view. And so it was really interesting to have that experience and to have connections to all these people from different walks of life, but we shared this common experience of being Morehouse men, being Morehouse alums at this point, and being HBCU graduates as well. So I think that to me has been one of the most important. And I think the other was realizing that going to an HBCU wasn't a negative. It wasn't diminishing your opportunity in the future. And I think again, for me, the experience of being interested in HBCUs when I was interested in school was, that's not what was on the radar for my college counselor at the time. And so my parents insisted in having that conversation, having that being part of the list of schools I looked at. But I think, that realization that you're not taking a step down, you're not, you're treating your opportunities when you attend HBCUs. And I think that's something that I've always carried with me and been very proud of the fact that I'm an HBCU graduate. I hope that my daughter, when she's a sixth grader now, but when she has an opportunity to consider schools, that she looks at them as well. So that to me, I think was really the two things that are most surprising and frankly, the things that I hold on to the most, in my experiences of going to Morehouse.
Thank you, Ed. And for folks who are going in the chat, I just want to shout out that we have some Hampton, Howard alums, FAMU alums in the chat who are lighting it up. It's okay if you could only private message me where you are attending. That is absolutely fine. But thank you, Ed, for sharing. Nicole, go ahead.
Yeah, definitely. Just to add on a little bit also with what Ed said, the opportunities at HBCUs, they don't, you don't really see. Now it's a little bit different with the media, social media. There's a lot more visibility as it relates to different corporations that partner with HBCUs for different things. But one thing that was surprising to see was how heavily big corporations recruit at specifically Hampton and a lot of HBCUs. That's something that is always something that I have to share when I'm, talking to students or parents, that you do not, get any shortage of opportunities at HBCU. As long as you have all of your, your grades are where they need to be, and you qualify, there's plenty of opportunity at HBCU. The one specific thing, like in addition, that surprised me was the young Black men. So many times in our culture, especially in New York culture, growing up in New York, like having, young Black men who were like motivated and who were like committed to their education and like passionate about the organizations that they were part of. And just seeing that side, you know, of our community was powerful to me, you know, and it helped to strip away a lot of the like preconceived notions that I may have had or may have built up, even, you know, subconsciously or unintentionally, about like what specifically like Black men, you know, are and who they, you know, who they are in our community. It just opened me up so much in terms of just like knowing that, no, there are, you know, Black men, Black women that are young and they're, you know, 19, 18, 19, who are doing great things and who are on amazing paths. So that was definitely like more like, oh, okay. Like, you know, there are a lot of people out here that are like me, similar to what Cecilia said. So I'm grateful for that, because it helps me to just stay open-minded and just know and understand, be grounded in the fact that, you know, we're powerful people and we are, you know, capable of accomplishing anything. So that was important for me. That was like one big takeaway from my HBCU experience in general, that, you know, we're powerful people for sure.
Absolutely. Hanley.
Yeah, so I immediately thought about this one experience that I had in high school. So my junior year, I had cut all my hair off. Like I went completely bald. And at that time, I was like super attached to my hair. Like I was always doing something, had braids, something. Like it was just so difficult walking into school like every other week with a different hairstyle. And like someone was asking me a question. And at first I didn't feel comfortable because, you know, I was the only, you know, bald girl, Black, bald. But when I went to Howard, the amount of women that I saw with similar hairstyles, the amount of girls who were doing hair in their dorms, or just like the community in general, like it was refreshing. And every time I describe my Howard experience, I always say refreshing, because I never saw that representation like at high school. And I always think about the moment when I had cut my hair off and I was like, wow, I feel so alone. And going to my HBCU, I was like, wow, it's not just me. So I always think about that experience, because Howard is like unmatched. Yeah.
Henley, I think that connects also to what Nicole was sharing about how HBCUs allow you to see different perspectives of yourself that we don't often get exposed to, whether that's in media, in our communities, of seeing the multifaceted nature of Blackness and all of its complexities. Peter, go ahead.
Definitely. I think one of the things that definitely surprised me, and it was probably the most shocking thing that I'm most grateful for, is definitely how strong your network becomes going to an HBCU. I think it definitely started with me even in my senior year of high school. Once I knew that I was going to Morehouse, I bought a Morehouse book bag. And when I was going to school one day, I got stopped by someone in the subway and like, oh, do you go to Morehouse? I was like, no, I'm going to be a freshman next year. And I connected with them. And after that, we still keep in touch to this day. And
Wow.
that just goes a small way to say that whenever you walk around with your paraphernalia for your school, there's someone who's going to stop you and want to talk to you and know your story. And that's a lifelong connection that you have. And some of those connections that you build are going to be helpful for you in the future. Just with my past internship over the summer, I met someone who went to Morehouse and I was able to connect with them, and it's been great. So definitely the network is something that is truly great. I'm grateful for.
I know we don't have any folks who were a part of Greek life, but I think they would say the same, who were part of Greek life at HBCUs as well, of that lifelong community that's developed, that wherever you go, if you're AKA, if you're Kappa, Omega, wherever, you are seeing those folks, and that community doesn't end after 4 years, it keeps going. Tamia.
Again, apologize for the noise, but my question kind of is like a different answer, but nothing really surprised me when I got to my HBCU, because of the fact that like I was expecting the excellence, I was expecting like this really strong space, and they like met my expectations and exceeded them, honestly, in regards to the things that like I anticipated when I got to Howard. I guess in regards to surprise, I guess how much they exceeded my expectations. So like being a part of Howard School of Business is like one of the best decisions I probably made in my like college career. So being able to not only network with amazing companies and be a part of their community, it's just been awesome to also just connect with all the different business majors and how interconnected everybody is. So that's also something that, I guess it's not something that surprised me, but nothing really surprised me. I was expecting to be comfortable, amazed, refreshed, like Henley said, like just being comfortable in my own skin and not having to code switch that as often as I usually did. That's what I said. That would be my answer. Not having to code switch as much.
Cecilia.
So for the sake of not repeating, I definitely agree with everything that everyone has already said. So I will add that I was surprised at how invested my professors were in my success. Almost, I hate to be cheesy with the FAMU and the family, but it really did feel like family, where my professors would ask me how I was doing. They knew I was an out-of-state student. They knew that, I'm on my own for the first time. And that wasn't something that I anticipated going to college. I thought, I'm going to be on my own and I've got to figure it out. But they really were invested in who I was, in my development. And some of my professors, it almost felt like an aunt, or it was just like a very warm feeling. And that was not something that I thought I would ever experience in an institution of higher learning. But I saw over and over that they really did care about me. And I don't know that that's something that students who don't attend HBCUs can necessarily say at some of the larger institutions, that they felt like professors were actually invested in their success and really cared about how they were, as a whole person. I remember my first year as a poor freshman, I was not traveling back home for Thanksgiving, and I got an invite from a professor to celebrate Thanksgiving at her home, and she invited students to come. And that means a lot when you're away for the first time at in another state and not able to necessarily travel home for that one day. So that was something that was surprising to me.
No, I remember my brother attended North Carolina A&T, go Aggies, and I remember for his Thanksgiving that he wasn't able to come home, of being received the same way, of having professors that he could go to their home, inviting them in, sit at the dinner table, and having that community outside of the classroom, having that mentorship and that support. Like we mentioned, it doesn't just end in 4 years, it's throughout the rest of your life, building that support system. So I actually want to ask my final question and then open it up to the community that we have. So if any community members want to start messaging me in the chat or use the raise hand function to prepare to ask these incredible panelists some questions, please go ahead. But I was inspired by what Hanley said, of like one word to describe your HBCU experience. So if all of you can give me one word to describe the culture of your college community and explain why you chose that word. I feel like for the students who went through the process recently, that we ask these questions all the time in the college counseling office, of like one word to describe you. How would your family describe you in one word? So I know y'all are going to come up with it. So exactly, Peter, go ahead, start us off. Peter, you're muted still.
I'm sorry, I apologize.
You're okay.
I would say the one word that just comes to mind when just thinking about Morehouse itself is just family. I know that now I'm gonna have lifelong brothers for life. My teachers, just the people in the community. It's just something that you don't get anywhere else. And this week right now, it's homecoming week. And so all the alumni, everyone is coming back, and you're just seeing everything that Morehouse has to offer, as well as Spelman and Clark Atlanta's homecoming was last week. So just family is the word to describe it.
It's been busy up in Atlanta then, these past couple of weekends with homecoming. Absolutely. Tamia.
I think Nicole asked, hand was up before me, but I'll go. It's okay, don't worry.
Tamia and then Nicole, I got you.
What was I about to say? Organized chaos, honestly, because you never know what you're gonna come on to campus to see. Yesterday I was on campus, like Peter, this week is also Howard's homecoming. So like yesterday I was on campus coming from class, coming from a midterm, and there was a fashion show on the yard. And it was just like a random fashion show. And that's like something that's normal on campus. And things like First Friday, Like there's so many unexpected things that happen on campus that you wouldn't even know about, but like you just go on. There was a day where they were doing an open mic on campus. There are days where people are just painting in front of the College of Fine Arts, and they're just like showing people their work. Howard is truly like a very unexpected place, and things may be going on. And if you don't go to Howard, you may like, what is going on? And you may be confused. But as students, we like, this is like normal for us. And we're just like, yeah, the fashion team is doing the fashion show. Like that's normal. And we just walk into class and you walk past it. And like, even like the unspoken rules, like don't go in the grass or things like that. Like you wondering why people are may grab you and say like, don't go in the grass, but it's something that we're all like familiar with and used to.
Nicole.
My word would be transformative to describe my Hampton experience. I feel that Hampton gave me such a strong foundation. I went in as an 18-year-old church girl, essentially raised in church all my life, didn't really see much, do much. And I was just able to really grow and evolve and become just a self-assured young woman that, you know, has, you know, gone after every goal, every dream that, you know, she's desired to. So that's something that I feel I can attribute to Hampton, and the support that you have to explore and to do and see and, you know, experience different people and all of the different variations. To know that, you know, anything is possible, you can go after your goal, and it's expected for you to be excellent, right? Hampton's motto is the standard of excellence. And so they pour that into you and you really become unstoppable. And so I don't believe that if I had gone to any other school that I would have received that same foundation. So yeah, I would definitely say it was a transformative experience.
Thank you. Cecilia.
So 2 of my words have already been taken. And I already referenced one, the family. That's actually a slogan because, you know, FAMU, we just add LY. And then I thought of transformative because I just so much growth I saw in myself and see it in my professional career today. But I would also just go back to excellence, because whether it was in student life, whether it's in academics, whether it's in business, journalism, pharmacy, engineering, you name it, it's just a standard of excellence. Our motto is excellence with caring. And even to this day, as an alumni here in New York, from a school way down in Tallahassee, Florida, I still feel that same level of excellence with caring. My alum are still like some of my closest friends. We are always in connection. We support each other professionally. We support each other with just like anybody know a good place to move to or good schools. We're always connected and we're always supporting each other. And I hate to parrot what others have said. I don't know that this is something that can be replicated outside of that HBCU environment. Even recently, I was transitioning from New Jersey back to New York City and connected with my alumni and got a great deal in Harlem. And it's solely because of my connection as a FAMU graduate. So, I think, again, excellence, transformative, all of the things that our panelists have said, I second 100%. So.
Absolutely. Hal.
Yeah, I would say affirmative. I think being at HBCU, it's a space that's really steeped in a lot of Black history. Going into predominantly white high school, the textbook kind of spoke for itself and what I saw as a Black man. And so being at Tuskegee, or even any HBCU for that matter, where you are forced to learn your history, you are forced to not just Black history in general, but the school's history. I know at Tuskegee, if you ever had to run for any type of campus government leadership role, you were expected to know everything from July 4th, 1881 up until where Tuskegee is today. And I forgot to mention, I actually worked at Morehouse as assistant director in college admissions. And so seeing that parallel at Morehouse where these African drums during new student orientation, where the students got up to recite this poem, like it's such a chilling movement that I was brought to tears. I'm like, I want to go back to school and go to Morehouse now. But, just seeing that space across, or seeing just affirmation nonstop across all the HBCUs, I think it's beautiful, even down to the scholarship that you read. Just fascinated with professors that publish books. I know that Black people do these things, but actually seeing professors that speak in their jargon, their language, leveraging Ebonics sometimes when kind of making a connection in the classroom, it just affirmed, our culture, what we do, what we bring to the table, and I found that to be beautiful. So I would just say affirmative.
Thank you. Hanley, you
Um,
started this off, so.
yeah, besides refreshing, I don't mean to sound cliche, but I'd say illustrious. I learned so much at Howard. I think that I wouldn't have been able to learn like any of the things I learned at Howard at any other school, any other PWI, to be exact. Similar to what Peter said, I went to the doctor's office today wearing my sweatshirt, and one of the nurses was a Howard alum, and we were just chatting up in the office, just talking about our experience, like networking, like we hold ourselves on a certain pedestal. And I think that going to Howard and being a part of the community is an opportunity that not a lot of people get to have. So knowing that you're a part of this community, you're using the opportunities that come at hand is just amazing. So it's illustrious, the illustrious HU.
And Ed?
Well, like Cecilia, some of my words are already taken, but I think the one that I was thinking of as well, and it's 2 words, but it's a phrase, is life-changing. Because I think for me, I think about, I rewind the clock, and I think if I had gone to a different school, where would I be and who would I be? And I know for sure that those 4 years at Morehouse were life-changing in so many ways, that allowed me to do the things that I've gone on to do, and to, to really be who I am in the world. So I think, that agreeing with everything everyone said, but I think for me, life-changing is definitely another word, or phrase or word that I would use to describe the experience.
Thank you. And thank you all so much for starting this conversation off, answering these questions, sharing so much of your experiences with us. We have a couple of questions in the chat that I will read off. So one from Jackie, who is asking, like, how as a junior do I stand out in the application process, especially for HBCUs? And I know none of you except for Kel have read admissions applications before, but thinking back to what you were doing in high school to help prepare yourself for the HBCU experience, if you have any advice to share. Nicole.
Yeah, so I think, well, one of the ways that students that we mentor in the organization, we make sure that the students are connected to the school that they're looking to go to. We make sure they're connected to their the alumni of that school, because there are certain things that an alumni of the school is going to know that nobody else is going to know, right? Of course, attending, I always suggest also for juniors to attend whatever events or whatever opportunities there may be in the city to connect with HBCU admissions counselors. So I'm sure you guys are aware of the Malcolm Bernard Fair. That's a great one for anybody that's just looking to explore HBCUs and would like to connect with actual university staff, like admission staff. That's a great opportunity. Go and explore, connect with people who are connected to the organization, whether that's alum or staff, to have the conversations and ask them directly what they can do. But that's my main thing, like network and connect with people who are connected to the schools that you're interested in.
And Nicole, could you repeat that fair? We had a couple of questions in the chat asking about the name of that fair.
Yeah, for sure. So it's called, so it's a partnership between the New York Urban League and the Malcolm Bernard HBCU Fair. So Malcolm Bernard is an organization that they have pretty much a traveling HBCU tour. They have dates in like over a weekend where they hit like New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania. And so that date is fair in New York is in Harlem at Riverbank State Park on November 12th. So if anyone's interested, definitely, feel free to reach out to Joe. I can send you the flyer so that you have it. But that is definitely one that I suggest. It's one of the biggest ones. We've had a few big ones happen, but not to take up too much time. But yeah, that's definitely a suggestion. November 12th, Riverbank State Park, the New York Urban League / Malcolm Bernard HBCU Fair.
Thank you. I was able to find that link as well and throw it in the chat for folks. Tamia, go ahead.
I know it wasn't something of my knowledge when I was applying, but like like Howard has a program for juniors in high school and seniors in high school to come for like a summer program. So just getting like acclimated with the school. If those schools have like programs like that when you're in high school, those can be really helpful. So like, hey, like you already shown interest, you already shown and taken the effort to come to our school and participate in things we have at the school before you're even a college student, to just have them on your radar, or have you on their radar rather. And then something, I guess, which was interesting to hear back from an admissions person from Howard when I got accepted, was that I was comfortable in talking about my identity, but then I was also comfortable with not talking about my identity. So the idea about going to HBCU is the fact that like your identity isn't like a token, or it's not tokenized as much as it is at a predominantly white institution. So being able to be comfortable in yourself and not having to feel like you have to share this very traumatic or very like, urban story was something that was just very heartwarming. And so like my admissions person had just said, like, you talked about your experience with kickboxing and how that changed your senior experience or whatever. So being comfortable with how that made me feel as a Black woman, and seeing how that made me feel just as a person, and how I experienced and transformed within that experience in my essay, was both like something that's helpful. So understanding that HBCUs aren't looking to see trauma or pain from you in your essays. You don't have to center like, oh, I'm only get accepted if I tell this really hard story that it's really hard for me to put out on paper. But also, if that is your truth and that's what it is, then that's like just being comfortable and standing in your truth is also something that we also respect. But it's the duality and be able to do either or.
And I would like to say, as a college counselor, that should never be the expectation for any college, that you have to, put your trauma on the line for admissions. But it's especially affirming to hear, that they read this essay and they were like, that was just so cool to hear about you kickboxing, and to feel empowered and feel comfortable being able to just talk about those interests. Kel, go ahead.
Yeah. So I think my perspective is a little bit unique, because I actually worked at Morehouse and I also worked at Vandy in admissions too. And I think the difference between the HBCU process and the selective process is that for HBCUs, the entire admissions process, it revolves around accessibility versus a lot of, the Ivies, they're really steeped in just that selectivity piece. That's what kind of makes them more attractive. And I think, focusing on accessibility, it really allows you to develop your unique student voice, when it comes to the essay. So, it's kind of been echoed here, really just writing from your authentic space, who you are, what you're coming to bring to the campus. I think a lot of students, get intimidated, assuming that, the ball is in the school's court or the ball is in your court, but really it's like you have the power is what I'm trying to get at as a student. So communicating what you're bringing to the campus, how you can transform the campus, it goes a long way. How you connect with the identity, the ideals of the school. I think demonstrated interest is also a big factor for some institutions. You'll see it less in HBCUs because again, we center ourselves around accessibility, but attending events, making sure your name is known, making sure you're actually completing those information cards, sending them back. If you're getting mail or any email from a school, that's a green checkbox. That's a great thing that you're actually aligning to what they're looking for in their overall class. But again, just empowering you all to know that you're interviewing the school just as much as they're actually looking out for you. That you're going here looking at the history. Does it align with your history? Is there something on the campus that doesn't sit right with your spirit? That's a big thing because you have to be there for 4+ years, if you're going to go there for graduate school too. So I can definitely do a whole spill on that within itself, but just know that HBCUs are out again to affirm you and to be accessible in this process. So don't be intimidated at all as you go through it.
Thank you. I also saw some questions in the chat around financial aid. And so without going into anyone's particular situation, could you all talk a little bit about how you search for maybe scholarships or any financial aid support that you found on campus that was helpful for you or friends? Because we understand, you know, cost of attendance of college is on the minds of a lot of students, families, grandparents, great-grandparents, everybody's thinking about it. So thinking a little bit into how you were talking about that. And to Mia, there was actually a particular question for you about the organization that you mentioned assisted with finances. So I see your hands up if you're okay to start with chatting about that as well.
So for in college, well, I could talk about two things. The scholarships that I received for like when I got admitted to Howard, and then the scholarships I'm receiving through like my matriculation through college. But for me, I got there in School of B, especially, there's a lot of scholarship opportunities, and then also like companies even come for sponsorships and things like that. Deloitte also being one of the companies that comes to Howard very frequently. And it's also one of our sponsors for the 21 CAP program. But so School of B has a scholarship for students who apply with GPAs above like 3 to 3.5. So I apply for that scholarship every single year, and they ask specifically what's your need, like how much can you afford and things of that nature. So they really aim to say like, how much support do you need? What do you need to pay for is a question, and kind of just like seeing how that can benefit you if you didn't, and seeing how that would affect you if you didn't have that money as well. And then in regards to what I received when I got admitted to the school, it was, why am I forgetting the name right now? But basically the scholarships were centered around HU need. And then I had also, just because of my grades and things like that from Berkeley Carroll, like a scholarship based on my grades as well.
Were there any databases that you used to find like external scholarships or anything like that?
Breakthrough.
And that's for everyone, not just
Yeah.
you.
Oh, sorry. So for just to finish off, so then I can pass it off to other panelists, I would say Breakthrough has, like, being a part of Breakthrough New York was a big help, but also I'm trying to remember. Thurgood Marshall scholarship. Those scholarships, I also applied to a lot of those, and just like various other ones that are like so scattered among every platform that I can't even remember off the top of my head. But I can also just like direct message you things if I find it.
Thank you. Kel, I saw your hand was up too.
Yeah, so sorry about my son crying in the background. We have a newborn, so I'm adjusting to that life too. But I don't know who this pertains to, but my pathway to college, again, it was very non-traditional in the sense that I didn't have a solid GPA. I was first generation, so I wasn't applying for scholarships. My parents and I were a little bit behind the 8 ball. And so didn't have the savings, again, didn't have a strong GPA. So I took out loans my first year. And you can take that as you wish. You know, if you think that you just have to get your foot in the door like I thought I did, then so be it. But afterwards, I knew my parents definitely put the fear in me that, look, we're not taking out loans again. So after this first year, you need to hit the ground running. So that's what I did. So again, if you just want to get your foot in the door, that's always an option. And what I did was I started networking with our local alumni chapter. I too am from the South, so Atlanta, Tuskegee chapter. I started getting a scholarship every single year from the Atlanta alumni chapter because very few students took that offer. So reaching out to the local alumni chapter, I became a tour guide, giving tours on Saturdays of my alma mater. Like, hey, got free breakfast out of it sometimes. You know, also paid my way through college. NAACP is offered some scholarships, UNCF, and then like Tamia said, Thurgood Marshall College Fund. Like starting there, a lot of, just insight, like a lot of companies like Deloitte, we go to UNCF and Thurgood Marshall as like the source, and we kind of outsource all of our funding that way. So if you can start there, you're definitely, 1,000 steps ahead too.
Thanks, Kel. And I put some info in the link. We can definitely follow up with families as well. But as college counselors across the 4 schools attending, we are here as resources, not just for college admissions, but the financial piece as well. So if you have questions, there are definitely scholarships out there. And for the junior who asked, it's never too early to start looking at those financial scholarships as well. Whether it's through, as Kel mentioned, the United Negro College Fund has scholarships for so many schools, not just HBCUs, but especially for HBCUs as well. And so we are here as a resource to help you through that process. And if you have any questions, Nicole, is your hand up for this or was it up for? Ooh, go for it.
Yeah, I just wanted to show a book that has been really dope. I've been sharing this with my mentees called The Ultimate Scholarship Book by Gann and Chloe. I think it's, yeah. So Amazon, go to Amazon, look at the scholarship book, the scholarship gurus who like share insights and, you know, advice around how maybe they got to their debt-free college degree or their free degree, right? Read, use books. Look, it might be old school, but it still works. So that's definitely something I would suggest.
Thank you for sharing that resource. That's another incredible resource to start collecting and utilizing. Tamia.
Another thing, I don't know if I said it or not, but from my SOB again, School of Business for Howard, I was a team leader. I'm now like currently a keeper, which is like a mentor to current team leaders. So being in that program also allowed me, kind of like how Kel mentioned earlier about like doing tours on Saturdays. Like that was kind of another way of me getting extra funds for school and my balance getting lower. So without my mother having to pay for it. So like being a team leader for 2 semesters allowed for me to be just less worried about school. Also, Howard Entertainment, which is the current program that I just finished, paid for an entire semester of my schooling. So they paid for my meal plan, they paid for everything. And so searching for opportunities like those as well, that not only your school is hosting, but like corporations who are funding your school. So Howard Entertainment was kind of like an entertainment-based program, and it allowed me to go to LA for the summer and work for Amazon. So it was like an internship, but they also paid for a full semester of school. So there's thousands of opportunities to do for programs to do the same thing.
Thank you, Tamia. So before we start to wrap up, I want to see if there are any final questions, either in the chat or if you want to use the raise hand function and ask the question yourself. Just give our guests a second to gather those final thoughts. Okay. Well, I just want to thank every single one of you again for spending your Tuesday afternoon. I know it is a busy time for everyone. So spending this hour with us to just share your experiences, it makes me want to go back to college. I'm like, let's do this again. Just share your stories with our students, with our families. Thank you. Thank you. I see one last question we might be able to get from Gail's iPhone. If you want to unmute yourself and go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Great. Thank you very much for taking my question. My child attends an independent school in Brooklyn where grades are not assigned, as opposed to the letter grades or the number grades. They write an annual summary of the children's performance. And so I'd like to know what the HBCUs would be looking for in the summaries, in such a summary, or what the child has to present to the school in admissions.
Absolutely. So for schools that don't have grades, as someone who came from the college admissions side, you know, we're still looking at those evaluative written summaries about academic performance, but that's when it's talking about that engagement piece as well. So what students are doing outside of the classroom, as I'm sure every single one of these students here and alums and grads here were probably doing something outside of the classroom, whether that was a job, taking care of family, engagement with their church, their community, sports, instruments, art, We want to see that level of engagement for all schools. And then there's also going to usually be essay questions. You know, there might be a question asking why you're really interested in FAMU, or you're interested in Southern University, or looking for North Carolina A&T, why you're interested in that school. And so as our panelists have suggested, I think really getting involved in reaching out to schools, going to visits, learning a little bit more about what each school is looking for, I think is going to be really, really essential for the review process. And as Elizabeth put in the chat as well, to me, she can guarantee that they review your narrative reports. Is there anything else you'd like to add, Elizabeth?
No, that's it. I just wanted to be sure that that was noted, that they definitely read them. They are grades in the eyes of college, and they are noted. Absolutely.
Thank
see,
you.
of course. I also see a hand from Nagi. So Nagi, you will be our last question for tonight, if they're still here. Nagi, are you able to unmute yourself?
Hi, thank you. I'm here. But the last question was a question I was going to ask, so I already got the answer.
Oh, perfect.
So
Great
thank
minds
you.
thinking alike today.
Thank you so much.
Of course. Well, thank you all again for attending. And one final round of virtual thanks, round of virtual applause for our panelists who have been so incredible in sharing their evening with us to share their stories. So panelists, thank you again. And for the attendees, we will have the recording available. So if you would like to come back and hear some of these incredible nuggets of wisdom, you'll be able to do so. But thank you all so much, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Thank you.